All right, well, thank you so much for joining us this evening. If you're just walking in, just feel free to grab a seat. We're just getting started. My name is Kelly Anderson, and I'm an executive director of the Chamber's Global Innovation Policy Center. The GIPC is the division within the Chamber that advocates for more effective IP ecosystems that help enhance innovation and creativity. I feel so honored to be here tonight with this fabulous group of female leaders for our conversation on empowering women through IP. At the Chamber, a key part of our mission is fostering support for policies that ensure that intellectual property can spur innovation and creativity, stimulate job creation, and promote economic growth. I think all of us around the table know well that that is true, but the Chamber also has research to back that up. Each year, we produce an international IP index that benchmarks the IP framework in 55 global economies. The report provides economies with a roadmap to improve their ecosystem for innovation through more robust IP policy. But I think the most effective piece of the report is that it also helps illustrate why it matters that countries invest in IP protection. Our data shows that countries with the most effective IP systems in place are more likely to receive a host of socioeconomic benefits that all countries strive to achieve. So these include things like greater access to venture capital, increased attractiveness to foreign direct investment, more high-value jobs, and ultimately become more competitive. We believe at the Chamber that effective IP policy can be used to achieve these outcomes in countries of all sizes and all types of communities for innovators large and small all around the world. So today we are here to have a conversation about how fostering greater participation in the IP ecosystem among women and underrepresented groups can amplify the many socioeconomic benefits that IP provides and have a real impact on these communities. I think it will be clear by the end of today's program that we have made so much progress. We will hear from the heads of some of the world's leading IP offices about their efforts to create a more diverse community of entrepreneurs by leveraging IP. We'll also hear from representatives in the business community about their company's efforts to promote inclusion in the IP ecosystem and the impact those policies have had in practice. Yet I think we all know that despite this positive progress, there's more work to be done, and we must work together to do it. We at the Chamber stand ready to work with each of you to ensure that IP can be a tool to empower the next generation of entrepreneurs to help deliver the solutions of tomorrow. So thank you again for being here. I'd like to turn it over to the director for any opening remarks that you may have.
Perfect. Thank you, Kelly. And thank you to the Chamber for hosting this and for the annual International IP Index. It's extremely important for all the work that we do. We at the USPTO are focused on creating and incentivizing more innovation from more people across the country and across the world and bringing that innovation to impact. And a big part of that is incentivizing and promoting innovation and entrepreneurship from women. I sit both as the vice chair of the Council for Inclusive Innovation at the Department of Commerce, as well as a co-chair of the National Advisory Council on Innovation and Entrepreneurship. And in both of those, what we say is now is the time. And I think today just shows why now is the time. It's a time when we know that women are severely underrepresented. They receive approximately 2% of venture capital funding in the United States, yet they're the largest growing group of entrepreneurs. In addition to that, it's a time when everybody is focused on that. And you will see that here today. When I first was meeting with different countries at the beginning of my tenure and in Geneva last year, I was surprised that on everybody's agenda was bringing more people into the innovation ecosystem and supporting women. It was quite a thrill. And then hearing industry as well being focused on this, it's just an exciting time to really make a difference. So I will save some of my remarks for later because I will be interviewed by Kelly on the first panel, and then I will have the privilege of interviewing our industry folks here on the second panel. So thank you for being here.
All right, wonderful. Thank you again, Director, for the wonderful idea for this event. We're glad to be here with you. So perhaps let's dive right in. We have a wonderful panel of female IP leaders here. So just as a starting point, I'd love for you each to introduce yourself, your office, and then tell us a little bit about your government's efforts to leverage IP to support entrepreneurship and promote more diverse participation in the innovation ecosystem. So Ms. Lee, I'd love to start with you for your remarks.
Well, thank you very much and good evening, everyone. My name is Raina. I have the privilege of being the Chief Executive of the Intellectual Property Office of Singapore. And want to thank the organizers for inviting me to be part of the panel. I think that events like this are very helpful. My constant message to my colleagues is that no one has a monopoly on good ideas. And it's very important that we share and learn from one another about increasing participation in the IP ecosystem. Our current studies recently that we launched at the inter-annual meeting show us that businesses that own IP outperform businesses that don't. Businesses that have trademarks show a 10% increase in profits, while businesses that have both trademarks and patents have 2 times more profits compared to those without IP. So there's a very sound economic reason for wanting more businesses to be engaged in the IP ecosystem. And that goes as well for women. Our studies on women participation in patents as well as in trademarks show that while they do not form close to even half, the trend shows that they are increasing, and therefore we must build on this trend and figure out how to support these women in participation. And of course, we have a whole slew of initiatives working in concert with other offices, agencies, and partners in encouraging participation in the IP ecosystem, including having IP clinics, providing mentorship programs, putting out materials for people to refer to and facilitating their participation, raising awareness, I think, fundamentally. And then I think specific to women, storytelling, I think, makes a big deal because I think amongst women, the imposter syndrome in us is quite big. So seeing how other women can succeed and can move forward as what we did for World IP Day, hearing the success stories of women, you know, engaging in IP, I think is very valuable. And let me stop there and I'll be happy to share more.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Leslie. Ms. Borisova, why don't you chime in?
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. It's a real pleasure for me to be part of this event. Thank you for the Chamber of Commerce and USPTO for inviting me and presenting the activities of the Bulgarian Patent Office. I'm the president of the Patent Office, and I might say that we collaborate very closely with the scientists, inventors, SMEs, also universities, research organizations. We are always open to support women in science, women in invention. Also for the 2022 year of 2022, 33% of the patent applications belongs to the women. So women, they are very active. They do a lot of researches and a lot of their inventions are implemented already into the practice and they become a real product. And I can share some statistic with you, which I think it will be very interesting. In the field of electronic engineering, 34.5% of the applications belongs to women. In the field of biotechnology, chemistry, and pharmacy, the percentage is 45 of the patent applications. And in the mechatronics, of course, the percentage is only 9%, but I think it's obvious that the women prefer to do a lot of chemistry and pharmacy products, especially cosmetic ones. I may share some of the achievements of our recent professors who are inscribed already in the so-called Golden Book. This is the book where all the inventors which have a huge impact over the Bulgarian economy is subscribed per yearly. So I may just mention one of them. Is that would be advertising? May I mention the medical?
It's a chamber event. Go for it.
So there is a lady, Violet, I don't know, she's a professor actually. She's a creator of over 120 medical products which are implemented already in the practice. As some of them are the pharmaceutical programs, Tempogin, Ranitidine, maybe they are famous all around the world. And also we have another inventor subscribed the last year, It's Professor Uzanova. She developed 15 active patents, and their economic impact is estimated about 650,000 level, which I might say it's very active comparing to the economic state for the country. And I will be very happy to share the initiative of the Bulgarian Patent Office in supporting ladies maybe in later stage. So thank you very much for that.
Wonderful. Thank you again for being here. All right, Miss Kashi Wangwa, hopefully I was close. We'd love to hear from you as well.
Thank you, Kelly, and good evening all. So my name is Vivian. The surname is Kashiwongwa. I am the Chief Executive Officer for the Namibian IP Office. The name is the Business and Intellectual Property Authority. So we're responsible for IP, copyright, as well as business registration and administration of all. So it's a big mandate. But when it comes to IP and specifically the question that you're asking, I think we are probably maybe a young authority. I think we were established around 2018. That's when we became fully fledged. But we've made strides. And when I look at all the initiatives that are being discussed, I can tell you that we are developing, and at least we can lean on shoulders of giants, at least to get there faster. But when we look at speaking specifically with respect to what women, where we have women in the country and where we want to see them, especially in the IP area, I think it's generally more the whole SME and business society, because the biggest challenge is more knowledge when it comes to IP, also the value of IP when it comes to your products and services, and that is where we are starting with that basic initiative. We are not where we want to be with at least looking at statistics and trying to really measure the impact. So there are studies that are being conducted in collaboration with other partner organizations like our investment board, where they are doing a great study to see what is the impact of investments and trade on SMEs and so on. But from our side, what we've put in place, we have a national IP policy where we have a steering committee that is composed of different agencies that especially your Chamber of Commerce, your institutions of higher learning, other research institutions that we have. And there we bring together these different players so that when we engage into trying to introduce IP into the economy, it's a collaborated effort and there are no duplications and so on. So we have that, and that's where we discuss the various issues, and they would then bring to the table as well. We've also, we have a big project that we are running with WIPO. It's big for us because we've got 50 women on board where we are doing women and IP, where they are getting training from mentorship to, getting their products onto the market and the whole chain of really getting the product out there and benefiting from IP. We're also looking at engaging them now on traditional medicine, as well as like traditional, not traditional healers or so, but the users and those who develop the medicine, and specifically towards the future as we look at next year's diplomatic conference on IGC and so on. So I think there are various, we are trying to introduce also IP as part of the curriculum at school level, because we believe it has to start from below and so on. But other than that, when it comes to the market space, and digital issues, it's more that our country is vast. It's a big country, and the connectivity is really, it's okay, but it's not where you want to be. So you have challenges for women and IP where they might not have access, but the basis is that the same that you would need when you do trade and product development here. It's just that it's more that is required because there are more people and more access to your products and so on. So it's important at least to ensure that they are capacitated to be protected. I think the rest we can discuss as we proceed. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Director Vidal. Would love to hear from you.
Thank you. So I'm Kathi Vidal, the Director of the United States Patent and Trademark Office and the Undersecretary of Commerce for Intellectual Property. Under the latter title, I cover all of IP, including copyright, but under the former, I focus on trademarks and patents, and my colleague, who you will hear from next, actually registers copyrights. In terms of our focus, we are focused, as I mentioned, on bringing more women into the IP ecosystem, bringing more people who have traditionally been underrepresented. I want to share a few statistics statistics because I think it just shows that if we actually are intentional, we can move the needle in a really meaningful way. So first of all, for Vladia and Bulgaria, I am so surprised at 33%, and it really, it's heartwarming and it's very optimistic. Within the United States, the percent of women on patents is more like 12 to 13%. But let me share a couple statistics because we have doubled down on our pro bono efforts where we offer no-cost legal counsel to those who cannot afford it. And through that, what we have found is that women participate at a 43% rate. So we go from 12 to 13% to 43 percentage points. It was 41 last year, up 2% this year. So it just shows that when you get out there and you meet women where they are and you provide them the support and somebody to talk to and collaborate with, they're much more likely to patent. We also have a pro se unit. So if you're filing a patent and you don't have legal counsel, we provide additional assistance. And we find that through that, the chance that people who participate in the program get a patent is increased by 4.6 to 6.1 percentage points. But when you focus on women, the likelihood that a woman gets a patent by participating in that program is 16.8% higher. And for first-time filer women, it's 23.5% higher. So it just shows that when we do meet people where they are, when we give them that support, we really make a big difference. So we are doing everything from, as Vivian said, in the schools, we educate, we have a partnership where we educate children starting at age 6, 7, and 8 on intellectual property, creativity, innovation. And we find that at the end of the week, they're so fluent, they're asking questions like, how do I protect my merch on the internet? I mean, it's incredible how sophisticated they become. We also have teach the teacher programs in our schools where we teach about intellectual property. We teach the teachers how to teach it because we know it has to start when they are young and then it has to rise from there. And then through these programs, we teach innovation in a way that is empathetic, which women are attracted to. There was a study that showed that in the past in the schools, we used to have 2 experiments in the United States. One was dropping an egg off a building and seeing if you could protect the egg from breaking. And the other one was shooting a rocket in the air and seeing how far you could make it go. That traditionally attracted men, boys, I suppose at that age. But as soon as you started changing the experiments and changing the problem to be solved for somebody has a wheelchair and they need a place to put their drink, all of a sudden you started attracting a broader array of people. So those are all the types of things that we're working on through the Council for Inclusive Innovation, NACI, as I mentioned. We just founded the Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative with the Secretary of Commerce, really focused on women and figuring out what do we need to solve. Mentorship is a big part of that, making sure they have mentoring, the resources, and bringing some of the best women across the country to talk to them about how they can be successful. So I, again, will pause there. Happy to answer any additional questions, but it's a big focus of ours, and a lot of our programming applies to women as well as others.
Thanks so much, Director Scheer. We'd love to hear from you about what the Copyright Office is doing.
Thanks, Kelly. I just have to say I'm delighted to be part of this very eminent panel of women leaders and also to hear about all these exciting initiatives. And I'm getting a lot of ideas that I'd like to follow up on. The copyright situation is a little bit different. Oh, and I should start by saying I'm the Register of Copyrights in the United States and the director of the Copyright Office. It's interesting because, as Kathy mentioned, we actually register copyrights in the United States and we examine applications for registrability. So it's a slightly different structure than in many other countries. And we're also part of the legislative branch. So we advise Congress on copyright policy, but work with the administration, and our 2 offices work very closely together. But what I wanted to do is to talk about some good news in the copyright space. Which is that women are increasing their levels of participation in the copyright system. And we are measuring it by looking at registration data. So we did a study that we released last year, about a year ago, that looked at women authors' shares of copyright registrations over a 42-year period from 1978 to 2020. And it was quite interesting. We found that there was a gender gap and that women authors had a lower share of the registrations than you would expect, than they should. We also found that female creators accounted for a significantly lower share of copyright registrations than men in the same creative occupations. Slightly different data. But it's interesting, first of all, it's interesting that the gap is not nearly as large as it is for patents. And when I said I was starting with good news, the good news is that the gap has been narrowing significantly over the years. So we went from women having 27.9% of copyright registrations in 1978 to 38.5% in 2020. So that's a big change, over a third now. And fascinating, women have actually achieved parity in at least one category of copyrighted works, and that is non-dramatic literary works. So go women authors, they're doing very well. But of course, in the United States, under our international treaty obligations, copyright protection is automatic. You're not required to register. So the data shows you some things, but not everything. But people do register when they think that their work is going to be important or valuable to them, when they want to commercialize it or when they want to protect it. So you need to register if you're a US author before you can go to court. And for all authors, you get better remedies if you've registered your copyright. So it's still very meaningful data. Now, we're of course not entirely pleased yet. We want to improve the record for the other categories besides non-dramatic literary works. And we want to make sure that more women are aware of and empowered to enjoy the benefits of the copyright system, both for their benefit and also for society as a whole to increase creativity. So we're doing a number of things, and I'll just be very brief. We're doing further research. We have a new chief economist, and he has hired a team. And so we're looking at other data. For example, we can do a gender analysis of our data sets related to copyright recordation. We record transfers of copyright rights and terminations of transfers. And we can look at the beneficiaries of our various educational programs and their reaction, their participation and their reaction. So we're working on that. We've expanded our outreach and communication activities. So we've doubled the number of outreach events and programs that we put on just in the past fiscal year. And that includes targeted outreach to groups like elementary school students, Girl Scouts, very similar to some of the things that PTO has been doing. Also some special needs groups like musicians with handicaps of various kinds. We're doing lectures at colleges and universities and outreach to diverse groups about career opportunities. In addition to that, we're publicizing individual stories of successful women creators. So this ties into Rena's point about storytelling. We're using tools like our blog and social media to highlight particular individuals. And then finally, because we're a small office with limited resources, we're trying to look for partnership opportunities so that we can get the word out and grow and expand new audiences to new audiences. So that includes working with the Library of Congress, where we're based. It includes working with the Patent Office and the CI Squared initiative that Kathi mentioned. It includes working with other agencies like the Small Business Administration, the Smithsonian, the National Endowment for the Arts. We are talking to and working with counterpart copyright offices around the world, and of course, very closely with WIPO, and then with private sector organizations like CHIPS, ABA, AIPLA, looking at women's art schools and programs at women's colleges. And there are some specialized groups like Women in Music, Girls Who Code, the National Museum of Women in the Arts. So we're trying to figure out ways that we can have a louder voice than we might otherwise be able to have.
That's a tremendous amount of work, Shira. Thank you so much for sharing it all. And last but not least, we'd love to hear from you, Ms. Gay.
Okay. Hello. Well, okay. Thanks for inviting me. Our offices register patent, trademarks, and design. Yes, we are an industrial property, just industrial property, not intellectual property. Yes. First of all, I must point out that our country has two very important laws in these areas that help all the employees to encourage the challengers of the gender. We have a Micaela law named after a young girl that has been murdered, which requires training for all public employees of the state, executives, Congress, and justice. And another law, there is a trans and diversity vote law, which requires the hiring of 1% of people from our offices, yes? And we have fully complete with that requires. We also have a gender roundtable that runs workshop on preventing harassment and violence in the workplace. Those actions help the office to articulate together with other public institutions IP training for women entrepreneurs and innovators for the domestic market and for exporting their goods and services. We would like to highlight that our office has able to raise gender equality even at the highest level. And we have different programs to help women and to help register. 56% of the visits of our website are from women. Yeah, that is, we notice that they are all the time requiring new interesting, yes, and discovering the IP. We are doing a lot of courses. And we know that in recent years, we have a key increase in the number of women registration, reaching 22% for patents and 35% for trademarks and design. Okay, that's our numbers now, but really we are increasing importantly since the last years. Yes, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Well, the panel has flown by, but I think we have time for one or two questions. One of the things when we dreamed up doing this event that we really wanted to hear about is not just the initiatives that are in place in governments around the world and in the companies that we work with, but the impact that those policies have had on real people. So I was just wondering if anybody had a story that they could share about the impact that they've seen of these great policies that you all just described. And feel free to just chime in. We don't have to go in order. Yep. Is it red? Oh. He'll come home.
There we go. Maybe I can share first, but as a start, I noticed some puzzled faces when I said no one has a monopoly on good ideas, because of course IP is all about protecting ideas, but it's about, I think sometimes women can be quite backwards about coming forwards. It's about persuading them that their ideas are worth looking into and worth developing. And then once you have that good idea, please make sure you protect it. But I wanted to share a story arising out of our World IP Day. And we had a panel of women entrepreneurs, women in business, who are startups, and sharing their IP journeys with the audience. And one of the women entrepreneurs on the panel, she shared how she made use of our system, including our mobile application, and told the women in the audience it's really easy to use. You need less than half an hour to file an application for a trademark or a design. She holds a few patents. She's still working on the commercial product because they're still in the research phase. But on the strength of the patents that she has registered with us, she has managed to raise $30 million just on the strength of her IP with no commercial product as yet. So I think it's stories like that. I think stories like that inspire other women to say, hey, maybe my idea is not so far-fetched. Maybe my idea is something worth exploring. And this is how I can protect my idea and bring it forward. Just thought I'll share.
That's tremendous. Yeah, absolutely. Feel free to jump in. Fine.
Thank you. Bulgarian Patent Office thinks that the most important in getting into impact is to disseminate knowledge and to build capacity of people, be aware how to protect, how to use, how to manage, and how to actually make business, make money through utilizing intellectual property. That's why together with the biggest research university in Bulgaria, we created a hub on intellectual property technology transfer, and we created the common master program. And through this program, we disseminate the knowledge, and actually we manage to reach the women and to push them to believe that intellectual property works. And like this, we have two ladies selected already entrepreneurs participating in a joint program with WIPO and Bulgarian Patent Office for Women Entrepreneurship in the field of textile and embroidering, which is the first step. It's not so big, but still it's the first step leading to the huge road ahead. So that's our good experience so far.
I love to hear that. Vivian?
So maybe our experience that is immediate is when I refer to the program that we are doing with WIPO on women entrepreneurs in Namibia. So when we started with the program, we tried to ensure that we get women from all regions of the country. We have about 14, so we got someone from elsewhere. But to date, we have about, out of this group, the program is not done yet, but at least they're at an advanced stage where they learned about IP, how to commercialize their products and so on. So what we picked up is out of those 50, about 8% have now actually gone and registered, for example, IPs like trademarks and so on. And one of the ladies was also selected to participate in an event that was hosted by WIPO in Rwanda, in Kigali, where they had it's a regional conference on intellectual property for women in agro-business. So she's in agri-business and she went to participate. So it was an awesome experience and a personal achievement for her. And of course, what we tell them is to become trainers of others so that they can at least become our mouthpieces for that. Thank you.
That's wonderful. I think, the common thread I'm seeing here is that when we give people knowledge, that there are real results with that, right? Whether it's, securing a patent you're able to raise $30 million US, or, 8% of people have registered patents because of this program that you have in place. So it really does speak to the impact of the policies that we're talking about here. Director?
So I'll just add a quick story that really emphasizes that when we think about expanding innovation, we need to expand the entire ecosystem. And that is the story of Sarah Blakely, who founded Spanx. And when she came up with the design, she went to a number of different patent attorneys, all of whom were men, who didn't really see anything there that was worth anything. And then she finally went to a woman patent examiner or patent practitioner who saw something there and helped her secure a patent. So in addition to the work that we're doing with women entrepreneurs and with innovation, we're also expanding the patent bar. We're creating a design patent bar and expanding the ability to practice before the PTAB, because we know we need gender in all of that.
Absolutely. Shira or Monica, anything you guys wanted to add?
Our office is working in different national and international programs related to women. Especially one in Latin America. We are part of the Latin America Gender Network, yes, together with other countries in our region, to achieve greater participation and inclusion of women in IP in Latin America, together with WIPO and 3 countries, we have also implemented an IP pilot project for women entrepreneurs to help them add value to their businesses through the use of IP. Really was very successful. Yes, was very like a mentoring that we were with women that have his companies, but small, yeah, maybe 2 or 3 years in the economy, yeah. And this year we participate with USPTO and we organized a seminar on the importance of women's participation in intellectual property to commemorate the International IP Day. Yes.
Wonderful. Well, we've run short on time here, but I really appreciate all of the great stories you've told, all the great information that you've shared about the good work that you're doing in each of your companies. And I hope folks will stick around afterwards to get a little time to speak with each of our government speakers and ask any questions that they might have, since we don't have time for it as part of our formal program. So with that, I would love to pivot to our next panel. Obviously, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce represents the business community. I'm here with a delegation from Washington, D.C., and I have two of my finest member companies with us here today to provide the perspective of the business community. It's going to be moderated by Director Vidal. So Kathy, I'd love to turn it over to you.
So thank you, Kelly, and I'm actually going to turn it right back to Kelly. Really happy to be moderating this panel today because all of what we do in government is dependent upon cooperation from industry. So really excited to have so many great industry partners who are trying to solve for exactly what we're trying to solve for, some of it in collaboration with us and some of it within your own organization. So Kelly, why don't I turn to you first, and would just love to hear about the work that you're doing. So can you reintroduce yourself and talk about some of the work that you're doing, and then we'll go to Karen and Audrey.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll be brief. So Kelly Anderson with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. I've been talking a lot during this program. I think we at the Chamber really recognize that there is an opportunity to use IP as a tool, right? I think we all know around the room the value that IP can provide. But I think, the Chamber has an initiative called the Equality of Opportunity, and that's all about expanding programs with the business community and government outreach to underrepresented and underrepresented communities primarily. We think that intellectual property as part of that engagement can be a tremendous tool to lift, communities of color and these underrepresented populations, out of the situations that they're in. So we spend a lot of time talking about how, innovators in these communities can really leverage that IP to make a difference and, to get to the next level. So it's, really just started to scratch the surface of this great work. And I think, we're looking forward to, as I think it was Vivian that said earlier, standing on the shoulders of giants, right? I think there's so many powerful women, that have come before us and moved these initiatives forward. And I think, we at the Chamber are really just looking at ways that we can build upon those great efforts and, really take this to the next level. So with that, I'd love to bring Karen into the conversation as well.
Sure.
Of women is going to work out here too. So I'm delighted to be here as part of the GIPC Chamber delegation, but also I'm delighted to know some of these wonderful women leaders we have in Washington and meet others here today. So I work for RELX. I work in Washington, D.C. as part of the Federal Government Affairs team, but I also head up our U.S. IP policy work now. And RELX is a company that you probably know by our other names, which is LexisNexis and Elsevier, the leading names. We also are Reed Expo and LexisNexis Risk. So I could talk about this issue probably for any of our entities, but I'm going to focus just with a brief time about Elsevier. Elsevier is one of the leading publishers of scientific and medical journals and medical education and healthcare products. Almost everything we do is targeted towards professional training and B2B, business to business or business to government, but particularly business related training efforts in this lane. So about 5 years ago, a wonderful woman became the head of Elsevier. Her name is Kumsal Bayazit. She is she brings diversity with her in that she was born in Turkey, educated in the US, and now heads her company from Amsterdam and London and is married to a Frenchman. So she's done many things in that time that have already shown results, including putting an inclusion and diversity board in place for Elsevier. And as part of that, she has elevated and been doing the data collection about our editorial boards. All our journals, of course, have editorial boards. And we've already increased the number of women by 10–15% just in this short time on these editorial boards, which of course makes a huge difference. We're also measuring the effects of our leadership within the company across RELX. We're about 50–50 male-female employees. At the higher levels, it's not quite where we'd like it to be, but we're moving in the right direction. But talk again about many things, but I wanted to share one amazing thing that under Kumsal's leadership has happened. She led a team that took 4 years to develop the first, from the ground up, 3D anatomy for doctors, nurses, and other healthcare providers to train on. If you can believe it, until about 2 years ago, they were all training on female models that were based on male models when they're learning to be doctors, nurses, and other physical therapists, everything else around the world. So in 2022, we rolled out the first from the ground up, completely female-based product, which you can just do Elsevier and anatomy, and you'll 3D anatomy, and you'll find it. Last year, we added the element, the team, which is a team of men and women who worked on this from different places in the world, where we have employees around the world, to adapt also this anatomy tool for healthcare providers to train on, providing a range of skin colors and a range of other diverse features, with a recognition, of course, that the world is not, despite, we often see, based in one region of the world. And it's been interesting because they've been tracking the data, talking about data. Now you can pick and choose which model you want to train on, and our model is has the largest set of users around the world. And not surprisingly, once you think about it, but the female and the models with diverse features are being used much more frequently and in training. And there are things, you think about dermatology, that can make a huge difference. Certain other conditions, skin color or facial build, different things. So anyhow, I'm very proud of that as just one of the many things we've done, which of course involved IP to create it, and also has to do with training people in the health and sciences. And we do the same with all of our many journals, working with the academic and scientific community. So I'll stop there. Maybe I'll pass the baton to Audrey.
Thank you. Can you hear me well? Yes. So first, thank you for inviting me. So I'm part of the Qualcomm Government Affairs team. I'm based in Brussels. So disclaimer, I'm not an IP lawyer. We're very few at Qualcomm not being neither an IP lawyer, not an engineer, and I'm very proud of it, but I'm still a lawyer. So I remember my time with Reed Elsevier and, all the LexisNexis databases. So it was 25 years ago. Just to tell you a few words about Qualcomm, because I'm conscious that not everybody know my company. So Qualcomm is one of the leaders in what we call the Gs. The Gs are basically, if you have a phone, you look at your phone, you're connected to the network, 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, and 6G, we have the best pattern in these technologies, okay? So in terms of numbers, we have over 140,000 patents and pending application. I checked with the IP department just to make sure. And our patent portfolio is most widely and extensively very licensed in the wireless industry, but now as well, for instance, in the automaker industry. So we are expanding the market. More or less, it represents 300 licensing companies. And we have, so as Qualcomm, we have a deep commitment to expanding participation in inventing and patenting. So even if we have all IP families at home, patent is really the core of our business so far. We believe that true innovation depends on diversity. In 2015, we sponsored some of the very first research on the inventor diversity gaps in the United States. I should have mentioned that we are a US-based company based out of San Diego, and we act globally. So we have focused on addressing needs and experiences of a variety of historically underrepresented groups, including women, but not just women. So we take diversity as a whole within the company. So with the hope that it will inspire others to take action, today I would like to share two recent examples. We have many, but we wanted to take the most recent one of how Qualcomm is broadening women's participation in inventing and patenting. One example is internal. The other one is outward facing. So the internal one, this is what we call with our IP department, which I do not belong, but we work well with them, the cultivating innovation. So we made concerted effort to understand the need of our inventors and potential inventors, and to improve inventor diversity, equity, and inclusion within the company while continuing inventing. So we're trying to look at this from a different aspect. And this initiative was spearheaded by our IP department. And we wanted to really work, to involve research, development, patenting, and commercialization. So we have used interviews, survey, focus group to deepen on our understanding of the challenge facing historically underrepresented inventor and to identify ways to overcome them. So we learned that additional training, encouragement, and exposure to IP helps expand participation in inventing and patenting. We also discovered that a strong mentorship program and active employee network groups are important resources to demystify the patenting process. I should tell you that I started 10 years ago at Qualcomm. We didn't have all of that. So it's kind of new. So acting on this knowledge, we revamped our inventor incentives to encourage and reward patenting, to equip our workforce. Earlier this year, we launched a new internal program called Cultivating Innovation. And as part of this program, we have training, events, we have talks, additional training to increase familiarity. And we invite like the big mind, of the company, men and women, for them to show, it's possible, you can do it, anyone can do it. And it's working well. I will give you some figures after. Now, outside, the world outside, we have something we call TIPA, which is Inventor Patent Academy. And we are very proud of the work we're doing. And we recognize also that more work needs to be done externally. We believe that we are strong promoter of IP, but IP is about, you mentioned transfer of knowledge. And that's something, as we do a lot of licensing, there is importance of value of transfer, but as well how we can grow the ecosystem and the pie. I will talk about it after. And this drove us to become a founding partner of Invent Together. Maybe some of you know it much better than me, by the way. It is an island of universities, nonprofit companies, and other stakeholders dedicated to understanding the diversity gaps in invention and patenting and supporting public policy, that's my team, and private initiative to really close all those gaps. So Invent Together educate policymakers and other stakeholders on the benefit of inventor diversity. And there are many, many things that they're doing. I don't want to be too long on that. We work as well, Invent Together work as well with WIPO. So if you want to know more about this, I'm happy to share more information with you. Now, regarding the Patent Academy, or TIPA for short, that's something we've done with Invent Together. There is a website. It is free, okay? So no monopoly, everybody can use it. And it's a little bit word of mouth as well. Anyone should be able to use it. It's a free online course created to help people understand patenting and IP to equip them to apply on their own patent. I've been involved in a previous version of it that we call it Learn to Pro, and we rolled out with a number of patent office. I remember the UK, in Germany it was with Fraunhofer, and as well in Italy as an example, but we take it a step further. So TIPA explores some of the challenges inventor, in particularly women and other historically underrepresented inventor, may face and provide tools to overcome them. This course is unique, so I'm like promoting the free aspect of it. It's made by inventor, and it helps as well patent and commercialization expert, and it was designed as well with diversity and inclusion experts, which make it probably less IP-centric, but as well, how to engage more people. And Qualcomm decided to create TIPA in part to answer a call to action from the U.S. Commerce Department Council for Inclusive Innovation. Our CEO, Cristiano Amon, who is from Brazil, served on the council, and he served with other leaders from the industry, from government, from academia, from the inventor community. And from what I understand, they developed national strategy for much more inclusiveness. So TIPA enrolled, it's still new, but we enrolled 1,200 students. 1,200 students, just making sure I'm not mixing my numbers now. According to a student survey, we are reaching our intended audience with like 80% respondent from historically underrepresented groups. So we are on target. The USPTO has also adopted TIPA, from what I understand, as a learning resource for its first time filler expedited examination pilot program. It's a very long name as a French woman to say. But just to conclude, some words. We're proud of the concrete step we have taken to improve diversity with our workforce. The TIPA I mentioned now, this is like a program for any new person entering the company. It's part of this onboarding activity. We know much more work needs to be done, so we're not naive and bragging ourselves. There is a lot of work to be done, including for us internally. But we are in a position to help expand participation in IP, whether through internal program or external program. And we encourage myself and any employee at Qualcomm to think about how can each of you can help to contribute. Lastly, I will start talking very soon. One formula to take away, which I really, really like. There is no pie that's being divided up. We are all here to make the pie bigger. This expression is coming from Ollie Fechner. She is the executive director of Invent Together. I would like to thank you for having me today. And please remember that true innovation depends on diversity. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Do we have time for one question for the panel? So first of all, thank you for those remarks. I will say that the First Time Filer program is one of the many initiatives that we put together to encourage and incentivize innovation from people who traditionally have not participated, including women. And you're right that as part of that program, we want to make sure that those who participate are successful. So we're requiring them to get certain training to make sure that their journey is successful. So the one question that I have for each of you, and you can answer in whatever order you're ready, is you're here sitting before heads of offices. You have other heads of offices in this room. I would like to know what more we can do to support the great work that you're doing.
Happy to jump in. I would just say in general about gender and diversity, I think there's sort of layers, right? We need to talk about it in our own companies, in our own offices. We need to talk about it with the people we're interfacing with already. And then we need to talk about diversity and gender issues as far as who are we not reaching? How do we bring them in? And I think we're all very committed to this, which I think is the first tremendous step. And I think we're all being thoughtful, data-driven, looking for great programs. I'll just share something that I just learned about at a convening we had, learned a bit more about. Our Elsevier team, part of the company, has been committing a lot of time and energy to making their own offices more welcoming. The surveys, coming up with higher jobs, workplace satisfaction, all of that has been with intentionality, and it's really working. And one of the programs that I didn't know too much about till I was in London a couple of weeks ago and learned more about it. It's a program called Psychological Safety. It's an official training program, and I'm sure I'm not the expert, but we could, if it's not familiar to those outside the US, it's quite interesting, and it's quite a way to make sure that people really do feel valued and engaged, and it definitely tends to lead to stability of the workforce. And I think there's data to support this, that for women in particular, that's important. A lot of women, if you read at least in the US, a lot of the reasons women leave jobs, they don't ask for changes. They just leave when they don't feel comfortable. And so I think it's really important. The other thing I would say is we're grateful that I'm most familiar, of course, with the U.S. Copyright Office team and the U.S. Patent Office and the gender and other diversity studies and data collection you're doing. We've been doing that for a long time as well. We've done, I think, 4 reports now on gender, researchers in gender, including one that focused on the effect of the pandemic on women researchers. It seems like a long time ago, I think, to many of us, but in reality, just 4 years ago, when so many, particularly women, who particularly often have the family responsibilities to a higher degree, had to cut back significantly on their research and other things. So we looked at that and the impact, and we've done a report on that. We also looked the following year at Portugal, which has one of the highest rates of women researchers compared to men, and kind of as a bright spot. So I think I would just encourage you all to do what you are continuing to do, but think of it maybe in those layers, like our internal team, the people we're working with, and then the beyond. And I'm really excited to be part of this effort along with you all.
Well, and I will just say I appreciate that. And I know we've been focusing here on how we support women external to our organizations, but I can tell you from all of our conversations, including with people in the room, there is a lot we're doing internally as well, because it is an ecosystem. So when you talk about psychological safety, it's just as important to women who are coming in and talking to patent examiners as it is to people's colleagues. So we realize it's an entire ecosystem. So Audrey or Kelly?
Go ahead. So I have plenty of ideas, but I'm going to share one, which is more like a personal one. So, and that's as well it's not an official program at Qualcomm, but we are invited to go back to our university or teach or share our experience. So 2 times a year, I'm not from Bocconi University, but every year I go to Bocconi University and I teach something EU, okay? Whatever it is, something important in the European agenda. And then we have the part about career development. And they are coming from a wide range of law practice. And I'm pushing all on IP each time. And they're surprised, I still have people saying, should I do GDPR? Yeah, well, you can if you like. But, if you want to share ideas, if you want to help people to grow business, if you want to think about, they're based in Milan, okay, so there is as well, many things, and they say, oh, we never thought about that. And each year, I'm on a mission to have more people to, either they will become judges as an example, or they will become lawyers, or they will become like me, lobbyists, but look at IP. I'm working on 5 for 20 years, not an essential patent, it's not gonna go away. But as an example, you can really build your career on a topic. I would say, when I remember when I was at La Sorbonne, IP was compared to antitrust as an example. IP is kind of minor in some countries, but in fact, you gave some great example, Vladia, about bringing values for your countries, for your region. And I do believe that that's something maybe as well, as a government, thinking about, you really need to plant the seed early, like super early. My daughter, she's 7.5-year-old. She's starting to learn. She's starting to count, and she understands that creativity and innovation is everything. And I do believe that the more we can, as a community, working on it, important. Another thing I would say, mentorship and networking. I'm going to say that, which is not true for me because I'm a lobbyist. So network is important. But as women, I would say that we're not that good in networking. The more we can have group of women saying, hey, by the way, hey, Karen, I know somebody who would like to join your company. Can we talk
Which
about
as
that?
lobbyists, we kind of naturally do that.
For example, I'd say, Kelly, and how we can help women building more, and not just women, but people that we don't see enough, in the community, how we can help create movement. You need to be 2 to dance, If you're 20, you can organize a ballroom. That's about it. That's what I would like to share with you.
That was fantastic. Kelly, why don't you answer that and take us home with closing remarks?
Absolutely. Well, I think you asked what you can do to help us, but I think more about what we can do to help you. I think the Chamber has a huge microphone, right? We're the world's largest business organization. And so I think it's imperative upon us to help get the word out about all this great work that you're doing. Audrey mentioned we have to start young and get this, teach people about IP early. And I think that there's a lot we can do to help advance that if we work together. That's not the question you asked, but that's the question I wanted to answer. So with that, we'd love to just thank you all again for being here today. As I was thinking what to say in closing, I was reflecting on the fact that it blows my mind that I am this little girl from northern New Jersey that can be leading a U.S. Chamber delegation to Geneva and standing alongside these fabulous women. And I think a lot about how I am here because of the women that came before me. I think we heard tonight that these amazing female leaders are leading the way for other women to advance participation in the IP system. And I think the challenge that we have is how we can work together to build on this great work and really open new doors for the next generation of female leaders to ensure that they can stand on our shoulders and advance the solutions of tomorrow. So I'm really, truly looking forward to working with each of the government speakers, my colleagues in industry, and all of you around the table to help make that a reality. Kathy, anything you want to say in closing?
No, that's perfect, but I am going to take you up on your offer to help because we've been trying to get out more in the United States and grow all the work that we're doing at speed and scale. So I will be in touch shortly on that. I want to thank everybody here. I will say it's not just the women leaders of offices that are doing this, it's the male leaders of offices as well. We are all in alignment. We are all focused on the same objectives. And as I said before, and as you heard, now is the time. So thank you.
Thank you. So no better way to end the program than to celebrate with a beverage and some food. So we invite you all to join us in the next room for a networking session and to just have some informal conversations. So thank you again for being here tonight. We really appreciate it.